Hello, dear book dragons. It's the middle of November already, and I'm going to talk about the books I've read this last couple of weeks. Actually, I already read 6 books, and yeah, I just wanted to show you. This is from the same my November pictures. Like pictures, my November stickers, more like. There, I'm so glad that I bought those stickers because they're so lovely. And this is the books I read so far. This seems to be a pink theme. And the first one that I read was The Late Night Witches. So, which was perfect to read just after Halloween. I didn't have time to read it before Halloween. And this is a book by Orly Wallace, who wrote 2 other books about a witch family, which is totally different from this. So it's new people in this book and a new place. And this is set on Prince Edward Island, where Anne of Green Gables comes from. And apparently there is a statue of Anne there, which we meet in this book. And this is a really funny, light-hearted, but also a bit gory book, because this is about witches and vampires. And our head woman, Cassie Beckett, she doesn't know she's a witch. She's a teenage mom, and also she has one daughter who's 15 and 2 sons, twins, I think they're 8 or something. So her life is full of that, and her husband is a doctor overseas somewhere, so she's alone with the kids, and she doesn't have time for spooky stuff. But strange things happens very quickly in this book, and her sister, her sister has this ability to tell stories that becomes true, and she's always had it. And she tries to pretend it doesn't exist. Well, they have a kind of strange relationship, but it's mostly a really funny, sweet book about the sisterhood and also being mom and finding her aunt, because their mom died when her sister was born, kind of. And so they've been growing up in foster homes. And yeah, so this is a lot about family. It was a really sweet, funny book. I gave it, let's see, sorry. I gave it 4.5 stars. It's also a little bit romantic because she has a new neighbor who has moved in, and he has a little baby to take care of. I think it's his dead sister's baby, or 6 sisters' baby. I don't really remember. And so he's quite lost, but she helps him, and he helps her, because he's an historian and knows a lot about the story about Prince Edward Island and which is her family history. Well, he knows a bit. He helps her to find clues about what is going on. And this is like the villain in the story here is the vampire who's been asleep for many years, and she is the 13th witch, which if he managed to kill her, he will take over the world, you know. So a lot of pressure. And yeah, so there are some little gory bits, not very gory, but a little bit, because the people that he kind of inflicts, they don't go totally vampire, but they kind of going around being dead. So yeah, and her sister's boyfriend is, I think, one of the first one who gets bitten, and she really tries to help him. It's really cute and disgusting. Well, if you enjoy a little bit gory and very cute and interesting sister things, I really recommend The Late Night Witches, and I really want to reread her other books, which are much more cute, but also sad. But then I also finished Sense and Sensibility, which I started early in October. So this is a book I've been reading like a chapter per day or something. So because I started reading a book for the book club, the classic book club, which I didn't really find very interesting. But I had already decided. No, it must have been, yes, it was earlier than that. Sorry, it was. Well, it doesn't matter. I really wanted to read this book because it's still Jane Austen's 250th birthday this year, and apparently the film. I saw this yesterday, I think. The film of Sense and Sensibility celebrates 30 years very soon, and apparently, if I saw this on Facebook that the film is going to be shown on the cinema again. I don't know if it's going to be all over the world or just some places. I would love to see it at the cinema again. I actually did see it on my TV just after finishing the book, just to compare, because usually I watch the TV series from 2008, which is really, really good. The film is also very good, but the TV series obviously gets to tell more of a story than a film does. So you can't really compare. But this is the second time I read Sense and Sensibility, and I would say I enjoyed it much more this time. And one part of that is, of course, because this book is so pretty. I have shown this book in another video. One of my first videos when I showed off my pretty books. There are a lot of things in this book. Here's a little pamphlet about Jane Austen. Yes, December the 16th is her 250th birthday. So it's quite soon. But in nearly every page there are some little pictures by Marjolaine Bastin. Pretty flowers, so there's nothing really to do with the actual story, but a lot of flowers and birds. That's the theme of her pictures. And there are also letters. There's a letter between Marianne and Willoughby. I won't tell you the story. If you don't know the story, look at the TV series. And yeah, here's the whole letters from that he gives back. Anyway, I wanted to read you a little quote. Oh yeah, and this is also, we hear this in the film. This is Marianne talking to Elinor. "You're mistaken, Elinor," said she warmly, "in supposing I know very little of Willoughby. I have not known him long indeed, but I am much better acquainted with him than I am with any other creature in the world, except yourself and Mamma. It's not time or opportunity that is determine intimacy. It is disposition alone. 7 years would be insufficient to make some people acquainted with each other, and 7 days are more than enough for others. I shall hold myself guilty of greater impropriety in accepting a horse from my brother than from Willoughby. Of John I know very little, though we have lived together for years. But of Willoughby my judgment has long been formed." And if you've seen the film or TV series, you recognize this. It's very interesting because, I mean, she is very naive and very much in love, or has a big crush, maybe you would say. So of course, when you have a crush, you really feel that you know that person, right? But in the same the same time, you can really, even with new friends, you can really feel that you really know them, or feel that you understand them, I would more say, right? And you can have known the person her whole life, like her half brother, and don't really understand them, even if you maybe know them. So even if she's naive in this, it's kind of true, I would say. Well, interesting to think about, anyway. Well, it's not difficult to read. There are a lot of words. And it's a beautiful language, but a lot of words, like, you really have to sometimes really read to understand what are they actually saying, because there's so many descriptive words. I think I should really read them in Swedish to really understand the subtlety of all the words. I've taken away quite a lot of my little of these, because yesterday I wrote down the words that I would have to look up this word, I have to look up this word. I didn't look up all the words that I don't exactly know. I mean, many words I kind of understand, but because there's so many of them, you can still get a little bit lost in the reading. But yeah, it's interesting. And as I think I said, I enjoy this much more this time. And I remember that from the first time I found the ending kind of sad, but this time I was like, but it's not very sad. Where did I get that from? So that's interesting. Anyway, I have to move on. Then I read T is for Talisman, which is a very quick, short read. I think I read it in a day or two. Yeah, 2 days, 1.5. This is the 9th book in Karen Sue Walker's series. T is for Talisman. And in this book, April May and her friend, and well, she's kind of adopted Jennifer, well, almost as a daughter, they go to New Orleans for holiday. And unfortunately, 2 ghosts, George and Pearl from the book before, goes with them. She doesn't really want them to tag along. She wants to just have a holiday without ghosts, without murder. And of course, that doesn't happen. I think like the first day after they stay there, Pearl comes knocking with a new, very fresh ghost who doesn't know why he's dead. They usually don't know why they are dead in this book. Wouldn't really be a mystery then if they knew, right? It was really interesting to learn more about New Orleans. I think you meet someone in the book who, it's a new ghost to say it's not New Orleans, it's New Orleans. So I hope I say it right now. Was one really interesting fact that they have something called streetcars, and I had to look it up what it was. It's trams, and I was like, this is an interesting word for something that's definitely not a car. Yeah. Well, I really enjoy these books, as I always do, and it's sometimes really nice to just read a book that can finish really quickly. And I very rarely know who the murderer is, so that's enjoyable. And I will come back to the 10th book later. But before I do that, I also read The King of Elfland's Daughter by Lord Dunsany. Look at that painting. It's beautiful. And I read this because in another book club we were voting for books to read in November, and the book that was voted I already read. So I decided to borrow this from the library because it sounded really interesting. It's a beautiful, beautiful written book. The language is so dreamy, poetic. It's quite strange sometimes very cruel story. There is a little village somewhere in England called Earl, where the men in the parliament, as they call themselves, has decided they want a magical king. So they go to the king and tells him so. And apparently he has to do what they say. So he tells his son, this man, the prince Alvaric, to go and find Elfland and marry the daughter to the king there. And he does exactly that. He kills her gods, and they just look at each other, and she's very curious about him, so they kind of just fall for each other very quickly, and she tags along with him to our world, and that all of that is really strange. Even it's really old-fashioned. Oh yes, I forgot to say that Lord Dunsany. This is before Tolkien, so this book is written in 1924. So yeah, it's almost a little bit like every chapter is a story, kind of. So it's like stories after stories, but then they connect again afterwards as you follow this Prince Alvaric, and then you follow the princess, the daughter of the Elfland King. Her name is Lyracel, and it's a lot about the folly of men, I would say. I mean, the folly of these men who think that they can have a magical king in the first place without consequences, and then also the folly of Alvaric, who just assumes that his new wife will just live a normal human life. And she can't do that. She's not very interested in doing that. She wants to be with him, but she doesn't want to become a Christian or whatever. They're yeah, it's strange how things happen. They get a son that they name Orion, which is the first name that she finds that he can accept. He's very you can't do that, you can't do that. I don't like him. I don't like Alaric. And poor Orion grows up not seeing his dad very much, and I don't know how much I should say if you want to read this. I really recommend to read this. Some parts are kind of horrible because when Orion grows up, he gets obsessed with hunting, and some parts of that's just interesting to read. But then when he's older, he actually kills a unicorn, and he gets obsessed by killing unicorns, and that was just horrible to read. I was like, why do you want to kill a unicorn? Yeah. But I just wanted to read you a little passage so you can hear the beautiful language. It's a lot about time and nature. The quest for the Elfin Mountains. Winter descended on Earl and gripped the forest, holding the small twigs stiff and still. In the valley it silenced the stream, and in the fields of the oxen the grass was brittle as earthenware, and the breath of the beast went up like the smoke of her campings. And Orion still went to the woods whenever Oth would take him, and sometimes he went with Threll. When he went with Oth, the wood was full of the glamour of the beasts that Oth hunted, and the splendor of the great stags seemed to haunt the gloom of far hollows. But when he went with Threll, a mystery haunted the wood, so that one could not say what creature might not appear, nor what haunted and hid by every enormous bole. What beasts there were in the wood, even Threll did not know. Many kinds fell to his subtlety, but who knew if these were all? So this is kind of language, and there was So this Oth and Thrall is Oth is a hunter and Thrall is kind of hunter. Well, no, he's not a hunter, but he works with animals somehow. So it's a lot about that, and because, yeah, I have to tell you this, because his mother goes back to Elfland. A lot of the book after that is about Orion's father is obsessed of finding her again. It's his fault that she goes back, but but he's really sorry about that, and he's just hunting for Elfland, and the king has kind of moved the borders, so he goes around for 10 years or more just looking for he just leaves his son who's lost his mother and goes off hunting for his mother. But yeah, I think my favorite part in this book is about a little troll. And unfortunately I should have tried to find the place, because it was such a beautiful description, such a funny sweet description of this troll just skipping over the fields, jumping from flower to flower. The troll's really small in this book. And I saw a beautiful edition of this book. Might be a little bit too expensive to just buy it because it's so beautiful, but for some parts, I think the book drags a bit towards the end, unfortunately. So I gave it 4.2 stars because of a little bit of the dragging, but also because, yeah, the men are really annoying. There's also a witch in this book, the witch who kind of is the nurse of Orion. But I would really, even if some parts are dragging, I would really, really recommend this book. It's interesting to read something that's written before Tolkien, mostly because the language is so beautiful. I have to go on. Anyway, then I read this last book in the Tea mystery series by Karen Sue Walker. Tea is for Trapped. And this was really funny. In this book, April May invites or arranges a meeting for a Sherlock Holmes society to have a tea party in her tea house, in her house. And the woman who leads this group, after the tea party is over, she goes to rest, and then she's suddenly dead. So the question is, was she murdered by one of the people she knows, or was it a natural death? And the fun part in this book is that actually Sherlock Holmes, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle appears after the other people in this group has tried to awaken the spirit of this dead woman. He appears instead. And he tries to help April May to solve this murder. And there is an earthquake that happens, so no one can leave the town, and she has to stay in her own home with these people, where one of them is murdered. And she has this annoying ghost, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. And then his friend Houdini arrives as well, and they don't really leave her alone. And I would say she's better at solving this murder than Sherlock Holmes is. And yeah, but it was really, I think this is the last book in the series, but it didn't really feel like an end. And I was a little bit annoyed that, she has this relationship with the police officer, but in the book before and in this book they hardly meet, because in the last book she goes on holiday, but she doesn't even phone him in that book. And in this book he arrives at the end because, well, because of the earthquake, nobody can get anywhere. So, yeah, he's not really around. It's kind of sad. So, I don't know if there will be more books. I think I read in the end. And there's always, oh yeah, I don't know if I said that before, but there's always recipes in the end of the book. Every book has some recipes, 3-4 recipes, which is really nice. There might be more books, it doesn't really say. So, yeah. And this I read in a day. And then I read A Cozy Little Fantasy, The Teller of Small Fortunes by Julie Young. I love this book. I give it 4.5 stars. I could actually give it more. Maybe not a 5-star, but high up. This is a really sweet, but also kind of sad and interesting story about a young woman called Tao, who comes from one country, Shinara, which is kind of a China country, but she's brought up in another one where, yeah, she doesn't look like most people. So wherever she goes, people see that she's from Shinara. But she has this ability to read tea leaves or read hands and see fortunes of the future for people. And but there's also a guild of magicians that she doesn't want to meet. So she just keeps herself to small fortunes because she thinks they won't find her then. And she's quite lonely in the beginning of the book. She's very lonely. She has her mule and her little wagon, but that's it. But of course, very quickly she meets 2 men who is looking for one of the men's daughter who's been missing for several months. And they tag along her for some reason, just follow where she goes. And then she also meets a baker, a woman called Kina, who is not very happy. She's not very good at baking. Well, she does delicious things, but didn't look pretty. And this is, for a cozy fantasy, I would say this is very adventurous. And so it's more than a cozy fantasy, I would say. I really, really enjoyed it. I read it very quickly, also in like 2 days or something. Or maybe 3. I've had a long holiday. I've been having day off from work, Friday and today. So that's why I've been able to read quite a lot these couple of days. So, yeah, those are the books I've been reading. And right now I'm reading 2 books. Shadow Knight, the second book in the Discovery Witches series.